a woman was accompanying her child at an Easter egg hunt, and the facility it was overcrowded. It was supposed to be, certain times for certain age children, so you didn't have the big kids knocking the little kids over. They did not keep it separated, and basically the mom got her separated from her kid and knocked down and had a really serious knee injury, torn meniscus, and a torn anterior cruciate ligament.
Jesus.
In addition to sprains and strains. So, major surgery. And she did actually sue and get that case resolved. I think it was in the $112,000.
Jesus. I mean, how chaotic was this egg hunt? I mean, you must have had a stampede of children. Prioritizing profits. Prioritizing
dangerous drug and product cases.
Welcome back. Another week, another episode, prioritizing profits, dangerous drug and product cases. How you doing? How you feeling? How's your weekend?
Woohoo! Actually, great. Weekend was good. Got to see you and Christina, which was really, really nice. I get to see you all the time, but I don't get to see her all the time, so that was extra added bonus. Busy week working on Boy Scout claims, which are a little rough, but kind of excited. I'm getting ready to go to Mass Torts Made Perfect.
Oh, where's that?
Vegas, Las Vegas. Yes.
TMP.
Yeah, the one you were at this one last year, but this year your NFT NYC conflicts. Yes. So you will be in New York while we will be in Vegas, but I'm pretty excited about that. Getting lots of updates on Mass Torts, hearing all about new and exciting projects. So I'll be excited to share that when I get back. And then, of course, just having fun in Vegas.
Yeah, well, there is a lot to do in Vegas. Last time we went, it was a blast. And then last year it was during the same time as NFT NYC as well.
Oh, you just didn't go.
Yeah. Prioritized Showard Law Firm business over it. And then this year, I was hoping that it wasn't, but I was planning on going to NFT NYC. That is this weekend, actually, Sunday. We got a red eye on Easter. Showing up Monday morning. We have family plans on Sunday for Easter, so we had to fit that in, but still the convention starts on Monday, so still get there in time. Very excited. I like red eyes. They feel efficient to me. I feel
You're going to sleep anyway. You might as well be traveling while you're sleeping.
Exactly, and then we have a pretty big day Monday. Overall, the week, it's going to be kind of a madhouse. And I guess for people unfamiliar, NFT NYC, it's just a Web3 crypto IRL convention focused on NFTs, obviously, as you can tell from the name, and not just Solana, Ethereum as well. Didn't go last year. Felt like the vibes weren't great. This year, vibes are much better. Markets.
Wow, yeah, things are going crazy. Yeah, Solana's been rallying.
But it's a good opportunity to meet and hang out with people that I've been talking to, working with, hanging out with for the last few years. Many of them I've seen before. Many of them I haven't seen quite yet. So it should be an exciting week. Tiring, but exciting.
Yeah, well, that's great. I'm excited for you.
And luckily, this weekend we did film an episode in advance, and so you guys will have an episode during that week, even though we'll be out of town.
Yes, we would not leave you hanging.
Yeah, and if you are watching this, as you can tell from our decorations, Happy Easter. It's been 2 days. So I'm currently in New York as we speak when this is getting released.
Yeah.
Happy Easter. And if you're just listening, maybe come hang out with us on YouTube, Showard Law Firm YouTube channel. You can see our fantastic faces and amazing decorations.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we'd like to decorate for the various holidays. And of course, we will be talking about Easter lawsuits and hazards that have happened and how to prevent them. So an important episode.
Very important. Unfortunately, this is being released after Easter, so
true.
They may not really be able to avoid some of these Easter disasters.
Well, if the disasters happened, you'll know which ones would be appropriate for lawsuits, and you can certainly reach out to us, and we'd be glad to represent you or to find someone who who can if it's not something up along our lines.
Well, before we get into it, let's hop right into updates on cases.
Sure. Well, so let's start. There's always the good news and bad news. So let's start with bad news, and that is we spoke about the STRATTICE Hernia Mesh trial, the first bellwether trial that was going on in New Jersey, a 3-week trial, and unfortunately, from our perspective, there was a defense verdict in that case. Yeah. So the jury was out for about 2 hours, not a really long time. And we're not exactly sure what their thoughts were. I'm sure we will be getting some more intel on that. One of the issues, they tried to point the finger at the doctor, which often happens in any of these cases with medical devices. And the defense And so the defense was, one part of the defense was that the problem, the failure of the mesh, wasn't related to the mesh itself, but to the fact that the doctor used what they considered too small of a piece. Therefore, the hernia recurred, the mesh came apart, causing some complications and injuries. So, again, our side will appeal. Usually in these cases, one side or the other does appeal, but it's a little bit of a bummer. This is the STRATTICE Hernia Mesh. It's not the Bard, which is the biggest manufacturer in most of the cases. There are very few of these cases, actually. In New Jersey, I think there's under 100 of them. And these are the ones that are made out of pigskin, so a biologic mesh as opposed to the polypropylene.
And this is pretty unique because I don't think we've heard or had a bellwether case go in the favor of defense since we've been filming this podcast. We haven't really talked about it.
Yeah, well, I don't know about if there was ones that we've talked about. I mean, there have been numerous cases. I mean, probably the most infamous was the DePuy metal-on-metal hips, and those were actually a product that was recalled. And I mean, the first few bellwethers were, against us, which was pretty devastating. I mean, it was a kind of one of those clear cases. I mean, they admitted there was a problem with it and recalled them.
Yeah. So in situations like this, because this is STRATTICE mesh, and there's a wide variety of different types of meshes, and then hernia mesh is kind of like the all-encompassing.
Right.
Or they're all hernia mesh products, but they're each brand is kind of different and bad in its own way. So how does this decision in favor of defense kind of affect the greater picture of hernia mesh? Is it a big deal because this is a very subset type?
No, I mean, in the big scheme of things, I don't think it says much at all, and especially because it's a very specific kind, a very small percentage of the cases, under 100 were in this litigation. It's a biologic, not the polypropylene. Almost all of the others are the polypropylene, and we know what the issues are with that. In fact, one of the arguments the defense made was, well, what did you want us to do? Put in the polypropylene? You know how many problems there are with those. Yeah. So I mean, that actually kind of supports the other cases to a certain extent. So I don't think, the hernia meshes are going to resolve sooner than later. They've been going on for a long time. Yes, this is a bummer. It's a disappointment, but there will be other STRATTICE cases tried. And, like I said, oftentimes, there are some for the plaintiff, some for the defense. You never know, too. I mean, one of the things that is kind of frustrating is that oftentimes the verdict has less to do with the case and more to do with like the plaintiff. I mean, I've always said, like, if a jury doesn't like a plaintiff, it doesn't matter how good the case is.
Yeah, that makes
and
sense.
If a jury does like the plaintiff, it doesn't matter how bad the case is. I mean, crazy stuff happens, and we don't know exactly. I do expect that I will probably be getting some more insight information while I'm in Vegas at Mass Torts Made Perfect. This will definitely be a topic that gets addressed in the hernia mesh meeting. So I will have more to say in the future, but I did want to just give a heads up. We had mentioned the trial was going on, was going to take about 3 weeks, has resolved, and unfortunately in favor of the defendant.
Yeah, it's pretty surprising when we see a curveball like this late in the process because, like you said, hernia mesh has been going on for a long time. It is a very strong case. It's something that, it seems like the plaintiffs are planning on getting wrapped up relatively soon because of how long it's been going on. And so having something like this that I think is kind of out of left field.
A little bit, but again, I think that the majority of the polypropylene ones will probably get wrapped up. I mean, this is very different.
Very subset.
It's a completely different product.
That makes sense. Okay.
It's a biologic. It's made out of pig skin. So it's very different. And like I said, they even kind of pointed at the polypropylene as like, hey, at least we're better than those.
Yeah.
So I don't think it's going to have a big impact on hernia mesh as a whole. And these cases will continue to get tried. There will be another Stratus hernia mesh case, and you never know. The next one could be completely opposite.
Yeah.
You get a different group of people on the jury. They have a different perspective on things. Or again, a different plaintiff, more or less sympathetic things. Who knows what can turn the tide on these cases.
Yeah, and definitely a lot can change from case to case. Moving on, though, what other updates do you have for us?
So another case that we've talked about quite a bit, and I almost hesitate to even say anything about it because it'll get our phones ringing off the hook again, is the 3M earplug cases. Yeah. And I'll just start right up front. No, we can't help you. I am so sorry, but we cannot take any more cases. In fact, what the update is that these cases are really completely wrapping up at this point. So for the global settlement to go forward, they needed a 98% participation rate. And I think that when we talked about this, you even said, wow, that's kind of crazy high. Does that happen? And not only did it happen, but they're at more than 99% participation right now. And they're saying that they think by the time this whole thing is said and done, they're going to be at 99.9% participation.
Insane.
But so that's a really, really good sign. And why I bring this up, and again, I hesitate to talk about the particular topic because it's so disappointing. So many people didn't get in on this. But there's the fact that it was such a successful settlement. I mean, what that says, again, we've talked before that a settlement, a good settlement doesn't make either side really happy. The plaintiff is getting less than they want, the defendant's paying more than they want, but it's within that reasonable range that both sides really are comfortable with it. And for that high of a percentage of people to participate says it was a good settlement. And the other thing that I think is really key about this and why I wanted to bring it up is that, 3M tried to play that bankruptcy game, the Texas two-step BS.
Yeah.
And it was not successful. And so what a lot of attorneys are saying right now is, look, this is a perfect example. 3M was saying, and a lot of these companies say, there's no way we're going to get to a settlement unless we force it with a bankruptcy where we decide the number that goes in there. And I say, wait a minute, look, this is a great example. Yeah. You couldn't do the bankruptcy. You came up with a decent amount of money, $6 billion, and both sides worked it out, and you didn't have you didn't need to go to into bankruptcy because you were not financially strapped.
And they're not bankrupt now. They're paying out that $6 billion, and they will be okay.
Right, and you didn't waste the bankruptcy court's time, and you didn't drag this process out, and you didn't basically commit fraud, what I consider fraud, by saying that your company is so financially strapped that they can't pay their obligations. That's bullshit.
Yeah.
They can, and they did, and everybody came out of this. Again, not ecstatically happy, but content enough.
Yeah.
The company is still solvent, and the plaintiffs, enough of them were satisfied. 99.9, they think it's going to be.
Well, I mean, it seems like with those numbers, maybe even the settlement amount was in favor of the plaintiffs, right? Like for that many people to be happy and sign up and go through with it, like it has to be a pretty good number. It's not just like, oh, this is good, this is okay, good enough. It's well, good. And not just that, but this wasn't a small MDL. This was the biggest ever. There were 293,000 claims, and so far 249,000, more than 249,000 have registered to participate. So again, this was the biggest one out there, and it went well. It went well enough that both sides were happy, and they did not have to do this bankruptcy crap. Yeah. So I mean, listen, J&J, pay attention, and potentially Bayer Monsanto as well, right? Yeah. Well, I mean, just looking at this, it does smell like fraud. Like for them to come out of the gate saying we can't afford this. This is absurd, unreasonable. We're not going to come to a conclusion. We just have to we'll give you guys what we can, but it's not possible because we're not financially able to. And then, however long after, how long has it been? Like a year, 2 years, roughly?
Probably within that range.
Yeah, either way, a year later or something, they come out and there is a decision, there is a settlement, there's an amount that is happy or at least okay for both sides. And clearly the plaintiffs are very happy. There's a ton of them signing up.
Yeah.
The defense aren't bankrupt. Like maybe they're not happy.
We told you wouldn't have to be bankrupt.
Yeah, like maybe they're not happy and maybe it's more than they were hoping for, but they're not fucking bankrupt. Like they're not out of business.
Exactly.
And that's what they were pleading. That's what they were
Crying.
trying,
Woe
convincing
is
the
us.
court. Yeah. And I mean, it seems like fraud one way or the other. And to see these other companies, and it is good that we have this example because now we see even more people or more companies trying to take this way out.
Well, exactly. And I think it will be a great, I guarantee you that the plaintiffs' attorneys are going to be arguing right and left, with J&J, with Monsanto, whoever tries to pull this, hey, it's not the only way. They're in there crying that there's no way they're going to get these cases resolved without forcing a number,
But they're crying to the government, right? Like they're crying to these courts.
Well, basically to the Supreme Court, ultimately. Yeah. I mean, they're going to file it in bankruptcy court. Then they're going to see what the bankruptcy judge does, and they're going to go into federal court. I mean, and take it as far as they want to take it, and keep trying, basically.
And the plaintiffs will go to the court and say, here's a situation where a similar company tried to do the same thing for the same reasons, and it's just obviously was not necessary.
I mean, that doesn't have to do with the actual law, the bankruptcy law, which says you really can only utilize this process if you truly are in financial distress, and that's really what the decisions have been based on so far. But them trying to argue this is the only way it can happen, this is a great example where a judge can say, wait a minute, no, not so. And in this case, and in most cases, it comes out of a mediation where both sides have to sit down at the table with a neutral mediator and, and really, for however many hours or days, hash it out until they come to a number that they can all live with. Yeah. Rather than just say, no, we don't want to sit down at the table with you. We want to just go do our little trick.
Yeah, we want to
play our little game.
Pay the amount we want to pay. That's it.
Yeah.
Well, that's good to hear. Any other updates before we go on to Easter-themed cases? Sure.
Well, just one quick one, and that is, again, there are a lot of cases involving asbestos and mesothelioma. We've talked about this quite a bit, but and we have talked about the fact that a lot of those companies, those manufacturers, went bankrupt, and there's a claims process that you can go through. But there has been another verdict, so a company that was not bankrupt, and this is a case out of South Carolina, an asbestos death with an award of $1.75 million. Again, these are big dollar cases because they generally do involve death, and this one did. This was awarded to a widow whose husband had died from mesothelioma. He was a maintenance worker and had been exposed to asbestos that was created by a gasket maker company called John Crane. So again, this is a situation, and we've talked about like with workers' comp and all, it happened on the job, but the culprit here is the manufacturer of these parts that were being used at work. And so it was a third party, this John Crane company, not bankrupt, and did go to trial, and pretty big verdict.
Yeah, that is a big verdict. I mean, the best asbestos cases are pretty straightforward, it seems, and.
Well, they're pretty much, yes. I mean, nothing's completely straight. They can always make it complicated. But I mean, it is a very rare condition, and asbestos is, definitely a cause of mesothelioma. It's pretty clear cut. If you can show that where they were exposed to the asbestos and pin it down as to, who produced that, it's going to be pretty straightforward. But this is, and again, most asbestos, companies most asbestos isn't allowed to be used anymore. But people are continuing to get diagnosed. This individual died in 2022, and he had been working at this plant back from 1971 to 1977. So, it was it takes quite a while, but people are, every day getting diagnosed with this condition. It's a bad one, and very active litigation.
Yeah, it's an interesting one too, because of the uniqueness of the condition and how you come down with it, you can track it back really far, compared to some of these other conditions that can be caused by a variety of different things. You have to look at family history, all this different stuff. But this is like a very, as straightforward as arguably as it gets, right? Things can always get messy. And this is a case that we are handling. So.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. If you've been diagnosed with mesothelioma or asbestosis, definitely get in touch with us.
Yeah. Alrighty, let's get into Easter cases. Where do you want to kick us off at?
Okay. Well, as with any holiday, there are hazards that one will want to be careful about. And it seems to me like most of the cases involve Easter egg hunts.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah, definitely. And it kind of makes sense because you've got a bunch of kids running around like crazy, trying to find the eggs before the other kids. You end up with knockdown, drag out fights. You end up with trips and falls. Depending on where these eggs are hidden, if kids have to climb on something, that's problematic. So there's been a couple of pretty big lawsuits out there. And there was one that got a lot of press. Well, this was a few years ago, back in 2017, where a woman was accompanying her child at an Easter egg hunt. And the facility it was overcrowded. It was supposed to be, certain times for certain age children, so you didn't have the big kids knocking the little kids over. They did not keep it separated, and basically the mom got her separated from her kid and knocked down and had a really serious knee injury, torn meniscus, and a torn anterior cruciate ligament.
Jesus.
In addition to sprains and strains. So, major surgery. And she did actually sue and get that case resolved. I think it was in the $112,000.
Jesus. I mean, how chaotic was this egg hunt? I mean, you must have had a stampede of children.
But are you
them.
surprised?
I don't know. I mean, I think Easter is an interesting holiday because unlike like Christmas or unlike July 4th and New Year's, where you can kind of easily deduce where the injuries or where the problems would come from. Fireworks, a lot of drinking at a very specific time, late at night, not at home. Like all of those things like can obviously lead to something. Scavenger hunts, egg hunts, I think is the easiest connection you can have with any typical problem with Easter, because obviously kids running around, you throw candy, you throw money in there, and you got them going feral. I mean, they're foaming out their mouths at certain points. It's just crazy. I mean, this is a grown woman. I mean, it must have been really crazy. Kids knocking her over, running over her, stepping on her knee. I mean, whatever it was, like this is chaos. And I think it's a good point too, is that they didn't separate the big and the little kids when obviously that should be a situation. I mean, I think these like very public, big event scavenger hunts are risky already. Like I know we had big scavenger hunts, but it was always, family friends. It was people we knew. I'm assuming this sounded like it was a very public, like almost like a public park where you get like 30, 40, 50 different kids. And
or more than that, or into the hundreds sometimes. I mean, they actually have an Easter egg hunt on the White House lawn.
Yeah, I remember that.
Yeah.
I see that every year, which I think that can't be that good of a scavenger hunt. It's all for PR.
Yeah, presumably, but there better be some pretty, damn good looking eggs and stuff. I would expect. It can't just
our tax dollars better be buying some nice eggs. Come on,
really seriously good candy and all. But I mean, there's so many places. I mean, there are parks, daycare facilities, schools, churches. There's all kinds of places put on these egg hunts, and of course they charge money for it.
Oh yeah, of course. Well, you got to pay for the candy.
Yeah, and all of those plastic eggs, and so and I can see the temptation. I mean, like I said, we have had them here at the house, and I have some stories about hazards that we've had ourselves. But I see the temptation of taking the kids out. It's like a fun event. They get to see other kids. But again, you really want to have somebody plan this carefully to avoid injuries. There was another lawsuit. This one was quite a few years ago, but really serious. This was in Honolulu. It was against the city, and there was a city-run Easter egg hunt. And so all of the kids were running after the eggs, and there was this retaining wall, and it wasn't fenced off, and so the kids, they were supposed to go down some stairs that were next to the wall, but they didn't have the wall blocked off. And so some kids wanted to kind of go over the wall instead of down because it was so crowded on the stairs. And so this young boy fell and hit his head and ended up with permanent brain damage.
Well, this is a wall, so they're going downstairs, though, right?
Well, they were going down some stairs, and there was a 4-foot retaining wall,
What
right?
does a
So
retaining wall mean?
well, like it holds back the the
water.
earth or something,
Oh,
right?
okay.
So you have like stairs with a with a wall,
Yeah.
and then there's a level up there, and so instead of coming down the stairs, they came over the retaining wall, hit the concrete head first, and had serious. They were permanent brain damage.
God, terrible, terrible. And it's just you get a bunch of kids in an area like this. Like I will say, I think you get this many kids in an event this hectic, and you talk about candy and money and getting them all riled up. And
Well, they're all hopped up on sugar.
Yeah, I think it's inevitable for something bad to happen. Like that this citywide hunt. They even
Well, not citywide. It was sponsored by the city, but it was in a
Sponsored by the
city
city,
park. It was in a city park. Yeah.
I just think like all of these really big events when this many kids, it's inevitable something happens or someone gets hurt. Like there's just no way all the I's and all the T's are dotted and crossed across the board. I mean, in this situation, that wall, I'm sure most people saw that, didn't know it needed to be fenced off. Even if they knew it needed to be fenced off, didn't think there would be an issue. But then you throw 50 kids trying to hop over it and one falls.
Well, and this is a 2-year-old too.
Okay, what the hell was a 2-year-old doing jumping? Was she crawling over the wall and it rolled over? Who?
Well, he didn't go up over a wall, so he's on one level, and then you would go down a level, either the stairs. You should go around to the stairs.
Yeah, and he just
he falls off of the. He doesn't know he's supposed to go down the stairs and falls off of that upper level and hits his head on the concrete below.
He's a 2-year-old. He doesn't know anything. Of course, he doesn't know he needs to take the stairs. He could be eating rocks for all we know.
Probably barely been walking, right, for a while. When you start like around a year.
I'm getting more and more confident.
Full on toddlers.
Exactly.
Full on toddling.
I think he just rolled down. Like I don't think there was any falling or anything like that. 2-year-olds. I mean, I would assume the parents were there too. Like where at what point do you say the parents maybe should have not let their 2-year-old roll down a 4-foot wall?
Well, but I mean, and I would think too that certain age kids should be allowed to go in one particular area, but that should be a really super safe grassy
There's no
area.
2-year-old area and then without supervision.
Well, right, you would supervise them, yes, but you wouldn't have to be right there. I mean, you'd let the 2-year-olds go, but it should be maybe a fenced-in area, no big drop-offs, no opportunities to hit concrete and have brain damage.
I guess so.
Yeah, so the more I read about this, I was like, wow. I mean, organizing these things, you have to be super careful and really think about all of the terrible things that can happen.
All the
it's not
feral 2-year-olds.
Not all fun and games.
Yeah,
for sure.
Exactly. I do. I did always love the Easter egg hunts. It's like the most real scavenger hunt ever. You can't really have a good authentic scavenger hunt. I think I had one like in school, and like I know some workplaces will do it for team building, but all of those are just pretty fucking boring and usually not very like well hidden or no good. Like the Easter eggs was the most authentic. You run around, you look for bright colors, and when you see a bright color, boom, you get rewarded.
Yeah, well, I mean, we had Easter egg hunts, and we had like a couple of big ones here. And I remember the first one that we had, and I'm not even sure how old you were. I don't know if you remember this or not, but we had the Easter eggs hidden like in the front yard. Mm-hmm. And that was a warmer year. It is cold here in Arizona this year. It's ridiculous. But the kids, we had hid them under, the plants out in the front yard, the bushes, the trees. And as I remember, the kids were kind of running around, and we looked over, and there was a rattlesnake. And we're like, whoa, no, don't come over here. There's a snake. And everybody thought we were kidding.
Yeah.
And they thought like we were joking. I'm like, no, there is a rattlesnake. And we're like, all right. Bad idea. And so, that's one of the things. I mean, when you're hiding the eggs, first of all, depending on where you live, you might have to worry about venomous creatures.
Hide it in a rattlesnake egg nest.
And luckily, nobody was bitten by a rattlesnake, or our homeowners would have been hearing about that.
I didn't realize the risk that you were putting on your shoulders every time you hosted one of these. Yeah,
but also just when you're hiding eggs, I mean, you need to think about it. If you put things anywhere where somebody needs to climb up, you're going to be risking.
Yeah, those are the fun ones, though. Those are the fun ones. If they're just laying out in the middle of a field, no one fucking wants that egg. That's boring. That's stupid. What's fun is when you see one at the top of a tree and you're like, holy shit, how did they get that up there? How am am I going to get that? And yeah, of course, there's a little bit of risk, but that's what makes it fun.
Yeah, but you're going to end up with a broken arm or a broken leg or
Well,
head injury.
everything takes a little risk. Everything is, you can always go bad.
Well, yeah. So definitely, people would want to hide them in age-appropriate spots. If you're doing it inside, not near shelves and breakable items. But watch out for plants, thorns.
Yeah.
Oh, and pools, of course, too. I mean, you don't want kids running around by a pool where they could fall in.
Yeah, I mean, I think just overall supervision here is pretty important. Like I said, you get that many young age kids in the same area and get to talk about candy rewards and money and all that. I mean, it's just feral.
A melee.
Feral.
Well, and the thing is, I mean, I think most people these days do use the plastic eggs.
Everyone does.
But, back in the day, I mean, it was actual hard-boiled eggs. I mean, you hard-boiled and decorated a dozen eggs, and then your parents hid them out in the yard. And then ultimately, you ate them.
That was the reward. You ate hard-boiled eggs that had been sitting outside all day.
Well, and generally whoever found the most got some sort of prize, and usually the Easter Bunny had left you a basket in addition to that. Okay. So it wasn't so much like the immediate gratification that kids require these days.
Yeah, hard-boiled eggs, that's you lost me. I can't even believe that's a thing.
Well, and then when you think about it, you're hiding food outside that then people are actually supposedly going to eat.
Yeah.
So there's health issues with that. You could end up with bacteria.
It's a fucking egg. Egg is it's like milk. Those are the two items in my head that I'm like, you don't want to last a very long time.
Well, yeah, when it's sitting out in the yard and God knows what the temperature is and all of that.
Well, anyways, any other Easter cases?
Well, yeah, there's some other safety issues before we go to talk about one more case is, of course, Easter, like any other holiday, there's a lot of celebrations. People oftentimes are drinking. So there is an increase in DUI accidents. And so, of course, people should make sure that they have a designated driver. And again, just more people on the roads because people do go and visit family and go to church and that sort of thing. And then, of course, along our lines, products. There's all kinds of, cheap, crappy little toys and things that can be choking hazards. And just be careful what you put in these Easter baskets, and make sure that they're age appropriate. And, and things like when you dye the Easter eggs, I mean, every year there's kids that swallow those dye tablets, or drink the
It's just I don't know. I mean,
well, it's very pretty, right? I mean,
it's pretty, yeah. It's like eating Play-Doh,
Well, there you go. So anyway,
Play-Doh looks delectable.
Again, just keep an eye on kids, so they don't manage to end up in the hospital on a holiday.
Yeah, no food color tablets, no rattlesnakes, and no 3-foot walls that fall down.
Yeah. So one more case, and this one was a pretty crazy one, and it was just last year. There was a situation that was all over social media, totally went viral. Talk show hosts were talking about it, late night guys and all of that kind of stuff. But it was really, really sad. Well, actually, it just got settled last year. But it was a little girl who was at a daycare. And so this adult came in dressed up like...
I've seen this video.
Yeah. Maybe Fernie can put a link to it. I mean, it's so sad. I mean, well, first of all, the Easter Bunny looked crazy. I mean, I'll
say it that if you describe it verbally, yes, it's sad. But when you see it, when you see the video, your first thought isn't like, "Oh my God, that's so sad." It's kind of funny. Seeing that,
I actually was so sad. I mean, but the thing about it, it's just the pure terror.
Yeah.
I mean, it's pure.
Yeah. The face she made, though, the face was like, yeah. I mean, pure terror. I don't know. I mean,
yeah. Well, I mean, she was really young. And I'm trying to think of exactly how old she was. I guess when the case got settled, she was like 8. Oh, it was like 5. So she was like 3. She was actually 3 years old, and just absolutely terrified and screaming. She looked like she was being murdered. And so what happened though was that this daycare worker decided that she was going to post this. And as you laughed, apparently a lot of people thought it was pretty funny.
Went viral.
It went viral, over 17 million views.
Well, the baby's face was pretty.
The baby's face was terrified. She was terrified. Absolutely.
Babies are always terrified. I mean, everyone had a I got locked in. I didn't get locked, but if I was in a dark room as a kid, yeah, I was shitting my pants. I was scared of the dark. It's like if you're a kid, you get scared every once in a while. You don't get how the world goes.
Well, so the daycare worker, and she had asked for permission and was not given permission to share.
Wow.
And so this is like a 3-year-old. I mean, you don't want and you don't want the child to be embarrassed, and you don't want the whole country laughing at your.
Well, I think it's more out of principle,
having
having control over, what if you're sending
videos of your child,
in a daycare, like where you're sending them to be safe and to learn things and to meet friends and all that.
Yeah. So anyway, but they did get that case settled for an undisclosed amount. But I suspect it was pretty significant. It's clearly not okay to.
So what does that look like on the business end? Because I'm assuming she wasn't individually sued, like the worker that posted that video. I'm assuming they sued the daycare, but the worker obviously knew what she was doing was wrong. Like she kind of shit the sheets a little bit. Asked them if she could post it. They said no. She still posted it. So where does the responsibility lie? Is there? What does that look like? So
they would sue, they would name the employee, but they would also sue the employer on a theory of respondeat superior. So basically saying you're responsible for the behavior of your employees. Sometimes the company will say, well, we're not responsible because it was outside the course and scope of their employment, and that's not part of their employment. But in this case, it was settled. I'm confident that the payment was made by the daycare facility.
Yeah.
I can't imagine that a daycare worker, had the means to
that's what I was thinking.
Settled.
I mean, this seems like a pretty big case, and an individual daycare worker. I mean, it's just like, even if they did what they did was wrong and the defendants are in the right, or the plaintiffs are in the right, they're just not going to get that much funds or that much money from it.
Yeah, no, absolutely. So anyway, I would recommend, I mean, it is, we'll post the video. I guess we shouldn't be continuing to, put it out there. It's still available though. I definitely
we'll put a link in there.
Out.
I mean, it's sad. Kids getting scared. Yeah, it's sad, but it's a little funny. Well, the faces are just kind of
she was
funny.
So you have Easter plans.
Yeah, kind of, more or less.
Yeah, so I'm assuming that's with Christina's family. And
not 2 years ago, they had a kickball tournament. They always do Easter in a park, and then they do like a kickball game or something like that.
Is there an Easter egg hunt?
No, maybe for the kids. I don't know. No hunting for me. Unfortunately, as much as I would love to open up some candy eggs.
Well, maybe you should instigate.
Maybe. There was a kickball tournament, and me being me, I felt the need to really step up, and my competitiveness came out of me, and I threw it all on the table. I was fucking sprinting full blast up and down the field, making catches, ducking, diving, everything. Got a few pats on the back. Oh, good catch there. So I left my imprint on Easter. I think whenever that family has Easter, I'm probably a topic conversation if I had to guess.
Well, it kind of feels like that was a bit of a turning point in your relationship with Christina's family as well. It sounded like that was maybe one of the first.
Well, I think once they realized
your athletic
athleticism,
prowess.
the pure athleticism out of her boyfriend, they just, they couldn't have anything negative after that. They just had to appreciate it for what it was, and what it is a freak of nature, because that's what I am, freak of fucking nature.
Star quality.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, it's hard though too when you perform like that to ever, to outdo it or to even match it. Or I mean, have you just kind of like?
That's been a fear of mine. So this year I'm hanging up the cleats. The old kickball cleats, hanging them up. I know I can't surpass myself. Also going to New York about a few hours after performing in kickball, and I know I'm going to be walking on in New York. If I sprint in kickball, it's going to be a mess. I'm going to be sore, cranky, and all that. So I don't think we're going to be doing kickball. If there is, I'll be having a background role within it, maybe pitching something.
Mm-hmm. All right.
And then dinner and all that. So.
All right, and the Easter ham.
Easter ham, I don't know. I mean, Vietnamese family, it's always kind of a toss-up of what American food is going to be there. Like, I know it's going to be a ton of Vietnamese food.
Yeah.
Very delicious,
Yeah,
fantastic.
which is
I
great,
love
absolutely.
it. But it is always a toss-up. Will there be a turkey? Maybe. Last year there was. The year before? No. Ham? Maybe. Who knows? You know?
Okay. Well, for Thanksgiving, I mean, there was lots of turkey and American food in addition to
There was.
Vietnamese food we got to try. So that was really, really great for us because we don't get that very often.
Do you guys have a Easter egg hunt planned up in Sinueta?
No, we do not. Actually, we haven't had an Easter egg hunt in Sonoyta since the year we did that for you and Keeley, actually.
Oh, yeah, that was a long time ago.
But that was a really complicated one, too. I mean, we had like each egg had a hint about where the other one was, and they were kind of riddles, and it was a lot of work. And you guys were like 15 or 16, and so I mean, we were impressed with with the creativity, but I think you guys were much less impressed.
Yeah, no, I think it was mostly Keeley just kind of powering through all of it. I didn't really do much.
Well, you ultimately did get to the Easter baskets.
True.
Yeah.
Any other Easter cases? Any other interesting cases in the news?
Well, yeah. So there's one interesting case that is in the news that I just saw today, and it's pretty crazy, and it's from up in your neck of the woods. And this is a big lawsuit against 3 Arizona strip clubs all along one area.
What?
Yeah. Well, this is a pretty crazy story. Just wait. So there's an area between Loop 202 down North Scottsdale Road past McDowell Road.
Oh, Skins, Bones. Which one is it?
It's called. Oh, so there's 3: Dream Palace.
Oh, Dream Palace. That's a
Skin
classic.
Cabaret and Bones Cabaret.
Yep.
Well, and so they're all 3 related. They're all sister clubs.
Oh yeah, Skins and Bones. You can tell. I mean, both the names and the
What a
design.
ridiculous name.
The interior, you can tell it's the same owner.
Okay, so have you been in these places?
No, Dream Palace, I haven't. Skins and Bones, I have. I've ventured there.
Wow.
On occasion, yeah. So what are they being sued for? I think it's a perfectly good establishment.
Well, after you hear this, you're not going to want to go back. So there are 20 victims who are suing at this point, and they're saying there are many, many more people who have had this experience. But they're claiming that they believe that they were drugged, and that when they went into the VIP rooms, they felt confused, didn't know what was going on, dizzy, blah, blah, blah. But they end up spending this ridiculous amounts of money, like tens of thousands of dollars. Yeah, so between the 20 plaintiffs, there's over $1 million in credit card charges. Wow. Yeah, I mean, it's crazy. So one guy was saying that he was with some friends, and then he had headed to the restroom, got separated from his friends, and then he says, I remember walking through what I thought was a cloud of perfume or makeup or something like dusty from one of the kind of cracks of light that was coming through, and that's when I ended up in the VIP room and started to get these symptoms, not alcohol-related, something else that made me acquiesce and go along with what they were pushing.
Made me acquiesce and go along with what they were pushing.
Well, and so here's the thing. I mean, there's a lot of alcohol, obviously, in these places, and certainly people's defenses are down and judgment is impaired. And then you have this sexy naked woman, trying getting your credit card. But so this guy was saying he didn't ever end up taking a drug test, but of course, like the next day, you're like, what the heck? Is he hungover? He doesn't remember the situation. And then he finds out that his credit card was charged just under $72,000.
No way.
Yes,
$72,000. I don't even know how you spend that much money there. Like at Eddie, I mean, you got to go to like Las Vegas or some strip club. I mean, at that point,
apparently, right there in Tempe and Scottsdale area, you've got this
crazy
$72,000. I mean, how many hours was he in there? I mean, what are they charging? Like $500 a dance or something?
It must be.
Well, and then a lot of those places, and I don't know about these, but like in Las Vegas, I mean, if in the VIP room, they'll charge $1,000 for a bottle of champagne.
Yeah.
Maybe more if it's some fancy bottle of champagne.
Yeah. The VIP rooms are fucking ripoffs from what I hear.
From what you hear,
From what I hear.
of course.
I mean, $72,000. That's an insane amount of money.
Well,
Like,
that's not the biggest. Okay, that's one of them. So another guy was saying that he only remembered 2 transactions, paying for drinks and a private dance. And after this was at Skin Cabaret, and he says after that he didn't remember. His credit card shows 8 transactions, and his was $181,000.
181.
181,000.
And 8 transactions. So what is that? That's at least 20K, something like that.
I guess, yeah.
20K per transaction. Because I actually can't even think, because technically, right, like you go to the VIP rooms, there's nothing, they'll act like there's a bunch going on back there, but it's just dances. It's just essentially a private room to receive dances, and then, theoretically it's illegal for any services, anything like that. So that would mean, $180,000 were for dances, and then alcohol as well. But I mean, even if you're charging $1,000 a bottle, I mean, there's no way he went through more than a bottle, 2 bottles. Like, I mean, you really got to be.
Well, maybe they're just like pouring them. I mean, I can't even. Yeah, I mean, it doesn't. But that's just the point. Is how does the club explain having somebody run up charges of $181,000, in however many hours? I don't even know how many hours they're open, but I mean, that's just a lot.
Yeah.
And then this guy was saying, he's in the Air Force station in Arizona, and he has a wife and young children, and he's saying like, he's disputed it with the credit card. The credit card company says nope, they appear to be valid charges. And they actually do this thing where they negotiate a price with the hostess. And then the customer signs a contract, provides a credit card, ID, and gives a thumbprint. And then they actually take photos. And one of the guys was saying that he vaguely recalls someone yelling at him to make sure he held the pen right because he was having a hard time signing his name, and then being yelled at by a bouncer saying, "Sit up straight and smile. We're trying to take your picture. You're not smiling." I mean, so if he's like, I mean, that sounds like. First of all, even if it's not drugs, if you're just that drunk, I mean, that's got to be an over-service issue.
Yeah,
right there.
but also it's weird that they would be treating him like that, like a bouncer's yelling at him. If I'm about to drop $100,000 at your fucking strip club, buddy, yeah, okay, you're not yelling at me. You won't even look in my direction if I don't want you to. Okay, like the fact that he's being treated like that when he's about to be spending a lot of money is interesting as well.
Yeah, well, and I mean, they want to use this as evidence.
Yeah.
Because, I mean, I'm sure that they do get arguments all the time, like, oh, I was drunk, or I didn't have the capacity to do this. And, I mean, I would imagine that just happens when somebody spends $1,000.
Yeah.
But, I mean, here we're talking, $72,000, $181,000. And so they're trying to document this. And, of course, that's the sole owner of this place is a guy named Todd Borowski. And it's Wisnowski Incorporated, which is doing business under Skin Cabaret and Bones Cabaret.
And then, so with he got thumbprinted, picture ID. I mean, I would imagine after all of that, it's pretty hard to fight the case.
Well, exactly. And that's why they do all these things. In fact, they were saying, too, that some of the club employees would, have the phone because they would get like text, credit card companies would get text verifications, or is this you using this card, those kinds of things, because it would be like a strange transaction.
I mean, 20K on a fucking...
Yeah, I mean, that's hopefully not, your standard the charges that they're expecting. But they would use the Face ID function, holding it up to the person's face, to get it to clear, to okay it. So it's interesting to see where this goes. Of course, the clubs are denying it, and they're saying things like, it's like going to a casino and asking for your money back, and denies that they were drugged, says the dancers are independent contractors, which, I understand that they are. Saying basically these guys received services they expressly contracted for, and they made sure that they documented it with these photos, fingerprints, blah, de blah. And then the other issue too is that some of these, like they went way over the limits of the credit card, and you would wonder, they were saying that with American Express, I think the guy who had like 80,000, his credit card limit was 22,000.
Yeah, how did
charges
they
go
get
up
it
to
over?
180, and they approved it.
That's
So,
insane. That's insane. I was thinking about that because like my bank, when I bought my car, like I was trying to call them and get that all figured out, but I have a limit. It's like 5K a day or something like that, which I mean, realistically, I don't really need to spend 5K a day, but also it's my fucking money. Okay,
well, you can actually change that.
no, you can request it,
Right.
but they
Not on the spot.
yeah,
Yeah. Yeah.
and it will take days. It will take
Yeah.
days, and also they'll be like, oh well, we can move it up to 7K. I don't. Why do I need a? It's my fucking money. It's a debit account. Anyways. It's crazy to me that these credit card companies wouldn't see anything about 180K being spent. I mean, unless these guys are some big ballers day to day, and they're
I mean, this was a guy in the Air Force.
Yeah.
I mean, he's not, and like he said, he's got a wife, he's got young children, and I'm sure she's pretty pissed. And and like his savings, his home. I mean, that's going to take him a long time to get that.
Yeah.
paid
So,
off.
did any of these plaintiffs take a drug test like afterwards? I mean, this is
So far, no. See, and again, they would have had to take the test, within by the next day, I would
Yeah, for
expect.
sure.
And so, I don't know the details on it, but I'm assuming they probably woke up feeling like crap. And I don't know if they knew about the full charges at that point yet either. So maybe by the time that they really wanted to dispute it,
I
it
mean,
would
I
have been out
think
of their
you'd figure it
system.
out pretty fast. Like, I think for me at least, after a night out on the town, when I wake up, that's one of the first 5 things I'm doing is checking my bank account, saying, okay,
Oh.
what's the damage of last night? How bad is it? Let me see. Especially if you're spending 6 figures.
Well, but that would be like a debit card. But if I guess you could go online and check your credit card and see what the charges were.
Yeah, I'm sure everyone has
you know.
apps for
And
that.
again, your first thought would be, well, I'm going to dispute these, not necessarily I'm going to run out and get tested,
That's
for
fair.
drugs.
Well, I mean, so what do you think happens here? I mean, it's clearly these charges are absolutely absurd. I'm impressed and curious to see what they say they charged 180K for in a few hours, I would assume. But also, they didn't take any drug tests. They're accusing that they've been drugged. That's a pretty big accusation.
That's a pretty scary accusation.
Scary big
right?
accusation with zero proof, it seems. I mean, where does this fall? What is this going to look like?
Well, I think and the reason that this is in the news is that it's unusual, just the crazy high numbers. And I mean, it's when people can get away with some shit, but when you get super greedy, I mean, and I think that probably happens all the time all over the country that somebody wakes up and it's like $1,000, $2,000, maybe even $5,000. But when you get to $80,000, again, like you said, I mean, what in the world could possibly have happened in there? I mean, they sell them a house. I mean, come on, it's like.
I mean, even escorts, they're not
cars.
charging 50K for a night like that.
Well, yeah. I mean, I'm telling you, you could definitely get. Yeah.
I genuinely don't know what services, even with everything on the table, they could have done
Right.
for 180.
Yeah. So there's something going on, and the fact that it's these three clubs that are all owned by the same person, they're all associated, and that there's again 20 people who have come forward, and this is the kind of thing that I mean, people would be embarrassed about. They're not going to just
for sure.
yeah. So I suspect that if 20 have already signed on to the lawsuit, there's probably many more. But I definitely am going to keep an ear out for this one because, I mean, this is potentially criminal activity, and really destroying people's lives. I mean, they're trying to go out and have a wild and fun night on the town, some bachelor thing or whatever. And the next thing you know, I mean, you're broke and broke for years.
Well, the location makes sense as well because I mean, Bones and Skins are like in Scottsdale, so you get definitely like the more bougie clientele, I guess, there that will have American Express card that you can charge 180 grand to. Dream Palace, however, it's kind of has a reputation to ASU as like this corny, cheesy, kind of like shitty strip club that anyone can go to, or like mostly under 21 people go to because most strip clubs are 21. And it's right next to campus. It's the closest strip club to campus. It looks fucking silly. Like it looks like it's called Dream Palace, and then it looks like
More like a nightmare palace.
Yeah, I mean it just looks insane. So I don't know. I mean, all three of them, the location as well as kind of how sus they already were in the past, it kind of makes sense that they're running into some trouble.
Yeah. Well, so it reminds me of a case I had many years ago, and it was a dram shop case, but it was against a strip club, and so my client he had actually received a workers' compensation settlement. It was like he received a big check of like back pay, and I think he had like $15,000 or $16,000. Again, not $82,000, but this is also Benson, and it was like this horrible.
No, you could buy a strip club for $15K in Benson. Shit.
Right. It was just it was a really sad case. I mean, this guy was, very obese, and I'm trying to remember even what his disability was. I think it might have been like weight and diabetes related. Anyway, so he gets this money, and he's got like 16 grand in cash, and he goes to this total dive of a strip bar. I mean, and this is like, it's like this shack. It's like this wooden shack with like a hand painted sign kind of thing. It's not there anymore, but I had to go out and take pictures and everything. And literally, the strippers in this place are like 60 years old or looking like they're 60 years old. I mean, it was so just ridiculous. I mean, these were, they were way past their prime. Well, so what happened is he gets in there and he's got all this cash, and so they are just getting him completely wasted, and basically take all of the money between the dances and getting him drunk. And then he left, and he was in a car accident and died. So, well, yeah, he was completely wasted. And so the claim was a dram shop for over service. Wow. And so then when we got all of the information, I mean, it was pretty crazy. Unfortunately, their insurance was minimal.
Yeah.
But we did collect. For his family. But it was, it was that whole thing where somebody comes in and they were just completely targeted and taken advantage of, and literally every penny that he had was gone.
Yeah, I mean that case specifically, that's rough, but it's an interesting conversation of that targeting, manipulation, like that is what a strip club is. And like that is,
and they're selling you a fantasy.
That's their business model, whether or not morally it's okay. To a certain extent, like that's just what it is about, right? Like there's an exchange there. They're making you feel special. They're making you, talking to you, whatever it is. You are being manipulated. They are trying to get as much money out of you as possible. If getting a drink or two in you helps, then they're going to do that. Obviously, this is a fucking lot more than a drink or two.
Well, but also if you look at it, so the dancers are independent contractors, so they're going to make the money on the dances, but the establishment's making the money on the bar bill, on the alcohol, and that's a lot of it because those drinks are very expensive. And of course, there's always like minimum, you have to drink at least 2 drink minimum at least. And so they're, obviously, and the dancers are probably going to get more dances once the guys are drunker and their defenses are down, and they're not worried so much about paying their electric bill tomorrow. They're more worried about what's happening tonight.
Yeah, so. I think once you walk through the doors of an establishment like that, you have to put up your guardrails. You have to recognize that you're going to be manipulated, and unfortunately, in situations like it is just people that are successful in that manipulation. I think what's really fucked up is in your dram case where like they just sent him home after driving. You intentionally getting someone really drunk. Call him
a cab.
At the very least. That's
this was pre-Uber days for sure, but
damn.
Yeah. So anyway, I guess that's just lessons learned. Be cautious in strip clubs. If if your mother hasn't told you that, I'm telling you that.
Yeah. That is very interesting. Definitely keep us updated on that one, and I'll let you know if I see any foreclosure or soon to close.
Signs. As you drive along.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Was there anything else you wanted to touch on before we close out the show?
I don't think so. Hope everybody had a great Easter, and I'll be excited to come back and report about MTMP and hear from you about NFT NYC.
We're looking forward to it. Thank you everyone for tuning in and hanging out with us. I hope you had a fantastic Easter with your family and friends. Hopefully there were no Easter injuries, no Easter egg hunt injuries. If there were, you can always reach out to us. We'll always give you our best opinion. If you do have any questions or concerns, feel free to throw them down in the comment section wherever you're watching this, TikTok, YouTube, Facebook, Instagram. We're always keeping an eye on it. If you want it to be something a little bit more private, you can always throw it into DMs. We're also keeping an eye there. And then we also have our email, podcast@showeredlaw.com. You can send stories, experiences, questions, whatever it may be. We'll be more than happy to cover it and discuss it on the show. But with that being said, I hope everyone has a fantastic week, and we will see you next week, same day, same time. See you later.
prioritizing profits, prioritizing
dangerous drug and product cases.